Today's vote to release the Epstein files is certainly the most visible and humiliating political defeat for Donald Trump in his second term. But as the Wall Street Journal points out, it is just the latest sign of pushback within his own party that has put him on a path toward lame duck status earlier than anyone imagined 60 days ago. Just take what's happened this month. November started with a rebuke of Donald Trump with widespread losses for Republicans in elections literally from one side of the country to the other. Following that, Republicans in states like Kansas, Utah, and Indiana, deep red America, told Donald Trump no thank you after he pressured them, and J.D. Vance pressured them to redraw their congressional maps to gerrymander more seats for Republicans. Even on Capitol Hill, Republicans have quietly been blowing off Donald Trump a little bit, certainly more than usual. Trump has spent the last month urging Senate Republicans to kill the filibuster, which has been completely ignored by nearly all Republican senators. And his latest proposal to send struggling Americans tariff rebate checks of more than $2,000 because of his own harmful tariffs have garnered little support on Capitol Hill. It might not sound like a lot, but as someone who's covered this story for 9 years, trust me, it is a sea change for the Republican Party that has usually replied with how high when Donald Trump says jump. The Wall Street Journal adds this, quote, since his election in 2016, Trump's ironclad hold on his party has been a defining feature of his presidency. Silence among GOP lawmakers has been the dog that didn't bark, and for a really long time. And now they're starting to yelp a little bit, said Charlie Cook, a nonpartisan political analyst and former publisher of the Cook Report. They're kind of stepping out, but gingerly, he said.
There's a difference between attention and authority, between dominating the headlines and actually controlling outcomes, between being loud and being effective. And Donald Trump, who spent decades conflating the two, who built an entire political career on the idea that if you're the loudest person in the room, you must be the most powerful, is learning that distinction the hard way. In December 2025, Trump still commands media coverage. He still holds rallies. He still floods social media. He still gives primetime addresses that networks feel compelled to air. But his approval rating is at 36%, the lowest of his entire presidency, first or second term. Courts are ignoring his threats. 225 plus judges have ruled against his mandatory detention policy in over 700 cases. The Supreme Court rejected his emergency appeal, the first time he's lost on the emergency docket in 11 months. Congress is defying him. Mike Johnson nearly lost the speakership despite Trump's endorsement. Elon Musk openly opposed Trump's own legislation and threatened to primary Republicans who supported it. Special elections show his endorsements don't translate to victories anymore. Democrats are overperforming by 14 to 18 points in 60-plus races. In Tennessee, Republicans had to spend $3.5 million defending a district Trump won by 22 points and still barely held it. And 75% of voters, including a majority of Republicans, say Trump's tariffs raise their prices. Trump has the spotlight, but he's lost control of outcomes. And that's the most important shift in American politics right now. Because real power isn't about how much attention you get. It's about whether you can convert that attention into results. Can you make courts defer? Can you make Congress obey? Can you make voters mobilize? Can you make opponents submit? Trump used to be able to do those things. Now he can't. Let's decode what happened. Why performative power without instrumental power is terminal weakness. And what it means that the country's most visible political figure is increasingly irrelevant to actual governing. Let me be clear about what Trump still has: media coverage. He dominates it. According to the Media Research Center, 92% of his first 100 days. Coverage was negative, but it was still coverage. Constant, overwhelming, inescapable. He held more Q&As with the press in his first 11 days than he did in the entire first month of his first term. He gives speeches. He issues executive orders. He controls the narrative on X, which he can use to strip critics of blue check marks and revenue. 73% of Americans follow news about the Trump administration, the same percentage that followed election coverage during the campaign. He's everywhere, every day, every news cycle, and that's by design. Trump understands spectacle. He knows how to flood the zone, how to generate outrage on command, how to make himself the center of attention. But here's the thing about attention without results. Eventually, the spotlight becomes a liability. Because when you dominate the news cycle and your approval rating is taking, every headline reminds people why they're tired of you. Let's talk about the numbers. Trump's approval rating in December 2025, 36% overall, 60% disapproval. That's the lowest of his entire second term, lower than most of his first term. On the economy, supposedly his strength, 36% approve, 57% disapprove. That's the lowest economic approval of either term. On immigration, the issue he rode to power, 49% disapprove. On trade and tariffs, net minus 20.5 approval. 75% of voters say Trump's tariffs raise their prices. That includes a majority of Republicans. And the demographic breakdowns are even worse. Independents, 25% approve, 70% disapprove. Rural voters, his base, 49% disapprove of his economic handling. White women without college degrees, 48% disapprove versus 41% approve. Suburbs, 60% disapprove versus 33% approve. 52% of Americans think we're in a recession. 61% say the economy is not working well for them personally, up from 57% in May. 53% say now is a bad time to invest in the stock market. That's the sharpest turn toward pessimism in the survey's 17-year history. This isn't just bad numbers. This is a president who's losing his core supporters on his signature issue. And here's the kicker. Trump still dominates media coverage. He's still everywhere. He's still the loudest voice in American politics. But the more visible he is, the worse his numbers get. Because visibility without results just highlights failure. Now, let's talk about institutional resistance. Trump has attacked judges as Obama judges and activist judges. He's claimed they're politically motivated. He's threatened them implicitly and explicitly. And courts are proceeding anyway. 225 plus federal judges have ruled against Trump's mandatory detention policy in over 700 cases. Only 8 judges sided with him, 6 of them Trump appointees. That's judges from 35 states, appointed by presidents from both parties, including 23 Trump appointees ruling against his policies. In December alone, courts issued 4 major injunctions blocking Trump administration policies. Judge Paula Sinis in Maryland found the government detained someone without lawful authority. Twice, Judge Casey Pitts in Northern California issued a 67-page opinion blocking courthouse arrests statewide. And on December 20th, the Supreme Court, the conservative supermajority Supreme Court that has sided with Trump about 24 times on the emergency docket, rejected his appeal. First loss in 11 months. Trump still attacks judges. He still dominates coverage of the cases. But judges are issuing orders anyway, faster and stronger than in his first term, because they've learned that his threats are just noise. He can't fire them. He can't override their rulings. He can't force compliance. He's loud, but they have lifetime appointments and constitutional authority. And when it comes to that confrontation, the judges win. Let's talk about Mike Johnson's speakership vote in January 2025. Trump endorsed Johnson. He personally called holdouts. He lobbied members. He spent hours trying to secure votes. And he nearly lost anyway. Thomas Massey, a Kentucky Republican, openly defied Trump, voted against Johnson despite Trump's pressure. Ralph Norman and Keith Self initially voted against Johnson too, only switching after closed-door negotiations. Final vote 218 to 215. Johnson won by the absolute minimum. One fewer vote and he would have lost despite Trump's full-throated support. That's not control, that's begging. And then there's Elon Musk. In June 2025, Musk openly opposed Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill, Trump's own legislation. Musk posted, "Kill the bill." He threatened to primary Republicans who voted for it. Trump's response? He threatened Musk's government contracts. Musk partially backed down. But the fact that it happened at all, that Musk could publicly defy Trump, threaten his supporters, and only face consequences when Trump went nuclear, shows how fragile Trump's control over his own coalition is. Republicans have a 218 to 215 House majority. Every vote requires negotiation, pleading, threatening. Trump can't just snap his fingers and make things happen. And when members decide to defy him, like Massey did, like Musk did, there's very little Trump can actually do about it. He has no formal mechanism to force compliance. He can't dissolve Congress. He can't fire members. He can threaten primary challenges, but as we've seen with special elections, his endorsements don't guarantee victories anymore. He's got the microphone, but Congress has constitutional powers, and when those collide, Trump loses. Now, let's talk about what might be the most important indicator: special elections. Democrats are overperforming by 14 to 18 points compared to 2024 presidential results across 60-plus special elections in 2025. In Tennessee's 7th District, a seat Trump won by 22 points, Republicans had to spend $3.5 million defending it. Trump did multiple tele-rallies. Speaker Mike Johnson campaigned in person, and the Republican still only won by 8.9 points. That's a 12.6-point overperformance for Democrats. In a Trump plus 22 district, if Republicans have to spend millions and deploy the president and speaker to hold seats like that by single digits, what happens in actual swing districts? And it's not just Tennessee. Wisconsin's Supreme Court race. Elon Musk spent $25 million. He personally campaigned. He called it the destiny of humanity, and the conservative candidate lost. Democrats have flipped 25 Republican-held seats out of 118 total special elections. That's a 21% flip rate, exactly matching the 2017 performance that preceded the 2018 blue wave. Trump still holds rallies. He still endorses candidates. He still dominates coverage of these races. But his endorsements don't translate to victories anymore. His base isn't turning out the way they did when he was on the ballot, and Democrats are capitalizing. That's the difference between attention and authority. Trump can make every special election about him, but he can't make people vote the way he wants. Let's talk about Trump's biggest vulnerability, the economy. Trump claims wages are rising much faster than inflation. Actual data, wage growth slowed from 4.1% to 3.5%. Trump claims eggs are down 82% since March, actually down 43.9%. He can lie about these numbers all day. He can dominate media coverage with false claims. He can hold rallies where he repeats the lies and crowds cheer. But people know what they're paying at the grocery store. They know what their rent is. They know what gas costs. And 75% of them, including a majority of Republicans, say Trump's tariffs raised their prices. Trump has always operated on the theory that if you repeat a lie enough times, it becomes true. That if you dominate the conversation, you control reality. But you can't gaslight people about their own economic experience. When they're struggling to afford groceries, telling them the economy is great just makes them angry. Trump's economic approval is at 36%. That's his lowest ever. And every time he claims the economy is booming, every time he lies about inflation or wages or prices, he reminds voters that he's out of touch. The spotlight doesn't help him here. It hurts him because visibility without results just highlights the gap between his rhetoric and their reality. Let me explain the distinction that matters most. Performative power is spectacle. It's rallies, media dominance, social media control, threats, executive order theater. It's the ability to command attention, generate outrage, dominate the discourse. Instrumental power is outcomes. It's passing laws, winning court cases, maintaining approval, turning out voters, forcing compliance. Trump has performative power. He can hold rallies. He can issue executive orders. He can attack judges and threaten Congress. But he's lost instrumental power. Courts block his orders. Congress defies him. Special elections turn against him. His approval tanks. And here's why that's fatal. Performative power without instrumental power eventually becomes just noise. When you're everywhere, but you're losing everywhere, attention stops being an asset and becomes a liability. Because every headline about Trump is a reminder of chaos. Every rally is a reminder that his approval is in the toilet. Every lie about the economy is a reminder that people are struggling. Trump thinks he still has power because he still has attention. But attention is only power if you can convert it into results, and he can't anymore. Here's what this means going forward. Trump's entire political strategy has always been based on dominating attention, on being the loudest, most visible, most unavoidable figure in politics, on making everything about him. And for years, that worked because attention translated to power. People feared him. Institutions deferred to him. Voters mobilized for him. But that conversion mechanism is broken. Courts don't fear him. They have lifetime appointments. Congress doesn't automatically obey him. They have their own electoral incentives. Voters aren't turning out for his endorsed candidates. They're tired, demoralized, or actively opposed. And his approval is collapsing precisely because he's so visible. Every day he dominates the news cycle is another day people are reminded why they're exhausted by him. This is late-stage authoritarian performative theater. All spectacle, no substance. All threats, no follow-through. All noise, no results. And historically, when authoritarian figures lose the ability to convert attention into control, they're finished. They can rage, they can hold rallies, they can dominate coverage. But if courts proceed, Congress defies, elections turn against them, and nothing they promise actually happens, the spectacle becomes the problem, not the solution. Here's the strategic implication. Stop amplifying Trump's noise. Stop treating every outrage as if it's world-ending. Stop giving him the attention he craves when that attention no longer translates to power. Instead, highlight his inability to deliver. He promised lower prices. They're higher. He promised to drain the swamp. He appointed billionaires to run the government. He promised winning. Democrats are overperforming in special elections. He promised control. Courts are blocking him. Congress is defying him. His approval is at 36%. Make the contrast clear. Trump has the microphone, but he's lost the power. He can dominate the news cycle, but he can't control outcomes. He's everywhere, but he's increasingly irrelevant to actual governing. That's not mockery. That's just describing reality. And when voters see the gap between Trump's spectacle and his results, between his constant presence and his inability to deliver, they stop paying attention to the noise and start paying attention to the outcomes. And the outcomes are clear. Trump is failing, not because Democrats are stopping him, though institutional resistance is working, but because the tools he used to wield power, fear, novelty, the ability to command attention and convert it to control, have stopped working. He's a performer whose audience is walking out, a strongman who's lost his strength, a would-be authoritarian who can't make anyone actually do what he wants. He still has the spotlight, but he's lost the power. And eventually, even the spotlight will fade, because nobody wants to watch a show where nothing happens.
Thanks for spending a few minutes digging into this with me. If you want more grounded, progressive commentary without the outrage bait, subscribe and stick around. Every time you watch, share, and engage, it helps build a community that believes democracy is worth understanding and defending. I'll see you in the next video.